They said I was a failure, a disappointment, the kind of guy who never followed through. But what they didn't know was, I had been quietly preparing for something much bigger. I just didn't know it yet either. But when a national security crisis hit, and the government's most top-secret project vanished, they didn't turn to the rising stars. They turned to me. And that's when everything changed. My name's Luke Holloway, born and raised in Dayton, Ohio, son of a steel worker and a lunch lady. Good people, honest folks. But somewhere along the line, I got labeled. Luke the Flake. Luke the Dropout. Luke the guy who just doesn't quite cut it. You know how that kind of thing sticks to you. You make one mistake, maybe two, and suddenly your whole future is branded like a failed cattle auction. In my case, it started in college. I'd gotten into Georgia Tech, engineering. I thought I was hot stuff. But then Mom got sick, real sick, and I had to go home, take care of her. Missed an entire semester. Tried to bounce back, but truth is, I never really did. Dropped out junior year, worked odd jobs, fixed HVACs, did network setups in strip malls. One time I even mowed lawns for a summer just to pay rent. Every now and then, I'd apply for something more technical, something that used my brain, not just my back. But those old rejection emails, they always felt the same. Thank you for your application. Unfortunately, then came my break. A buddy from tech school told me about a civilian contractor opening with a quiet division of the Department of Defense. It wasn't glamorous, just systems maintenance on encrypted networks. But I jumped on it. They didn't care about my GPA or my resume. They cared that I could read code, troubleshoot, and show up every day. That's it. So I did. For 8 years. Quiet work. No headlines, no medals, but steady. And somewhere in there, I started getting good. Like, really good. I'd solve problems the other techs couldn't. I'd patch systems on the fly during server blackouts. I even built a diagnostic tool that cut our downtime in half. But did anyone notice? No. My supervisor, Jenkins, still introduced me in meetings as Luke the Fix-It guy. Never engineer, never lead, just the guy who patches stuff when it breaks. The rest of the team, mostly younger, degree-stamped hotshots, treated me like background noise. Luke, hand me that terminal cable. Luke, can you run these logs while we prep the real architecture? Real architecture. Like I was just the janitor of code. The worst moment? Project Tetra. That still stings. It was a systems upgrade for one of our satellite-linked Intel servers. I had flagged a potential breach in the data handshake protocols, a silent flaw that could allow access from the outside. I brought it up in a planning session. Jenkins brushed it off. Luke, this isn't another one of your gut feelings, is it? The room chuckled. Even the intern laughed. Turns out, 3 weeks later, we got hit. A full-on intrusion attempt. I caught it in real time, quarantined it, traced the node, and shut it down before any data was lost. Did I get thanked? Nope. They sent out a team-wide email crediting Jenkins for rapid detection and response. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, just thinking. Why was I still here? But something inside me refused to quit. Maybe it was Dad's voice in my head. You don't leave the field until the work is done, son. Or maybe it was because I'd come too far to just be a ghost in the background. So I stayed. And then, 6 months later, everything changed. We got a briefing. Quiet. Behind closed doors. A project I'd never heard of before, classified above top secret, had gone dark. No comms, No signals, no traces. It was called Sparrowlock. Only a handful of people even knew it existed, but it was critical. We're talking cybersecurity architecture that guarded the US's most sensitive defense operations. If it fell into the wrong hands, we could be looking at satellite sabotage, nuclear codes at risk, even AI drone manipulation, the worst kind of nightmare. Everyone assumed they'd bring in the big guns. Cyber Command, FBI Cybercrime Division, NSA elite teams. But then Jenkins called me into his office. He didn't look smug for once, just tired. He said, "Luke, you're the only one who ever understood the Sparrowlock subsystem. You worked on the relay shell without knowing it. They want you to lead the recovery." I blinked, thought it was a joke. Me? The fix-it guy? I walked out of that office stunned. Half the team avoided eye contact. The other half whispered like I'd just been promoted by mistake. One guy, a kid named Marcus, said loud enough for the room to hear, "Guess they really are scraping the bottom of the barrel." And maybe they were. But this barrel still had something to prove. I didn't sleep much that night. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-cold cup of coffee, trying to wrap my head around it all. After years of being overlooked, underestimated, even ignored, they wanted me to lead the recovery of a top-secret national defense project. It didn't feel like a promotion. It felt like a trap. You see, when someone hands you a ticking time bomb and says, "Good luck," they're not exactly expecting you to come back alive. They're expecting you to take the blame when it all goes wrong. Sparrowlock wasn't just any project. It was a distributed AI-linked defense platform, a watchdog program designed to detect, predict, and neutralize cyber threats before they hit American infrastructure. Power grids, satellite relays, naval guidance systems. If it stayed dark, or worse, if it got hijacked. We weren't talking about just a technical failure. We were talking about national paralysis, foreign actors crashing our systems, lives at risk, real Americans losing everything, because the fix-it guy couldn't cut it. Yeah, the pressure, it was real. They brought me into a sealed conference room at a facility outside DC. A room where nobody smiled and everyone had clearance. 5-star flags on the wall. Badges I'd only seen in movies. People in suits who didn't blink much. A man I now know as Director Royce sat at the head of the table. He looked at me like I was a gamble, not a plan. "We need access to Sparrowlock's command chain in the next 72 hours, or we assume it's compromised." That was all he said. "No, you can do this. No, we believe in you. Just pressure." They handed me a thick red folder, then a tablet with classified protocols. And then, just like that, I was dismissed. The next day, I was assigned 6 people. Only 2 of them I had worked with before. The rest were strangers, high-level, mismatched experts pulled from all corners of the agency network. There was Tara, a cryptanalyst from Langley, sharp as a scalpel, cold as one, too. Elijah, a systems engineer from Fort Meade, always humming jazz under his breath. Quan, a robotics PhD who had 3 MIT degrees, but didn't believe in eye contact. Jennings, former Marine, cybersecurity turned tactical logistics. The only one who treated me like a human from day one. And finally, Marcus. Yeah, that Marcus, the guy who mocked me back in the office. Apparently, someone thought it'd be a good idea to stick him on my team. I wasn't thrilled. From day one, there was friction. Tara questioned everything I said with a passive-aggressive, interesting approach. Elijah asked to see my credentials twice. Quan refused to follow the communication protocols I laid out. Marcus, well, Marcus made sure everyone remembered the nickname, Fix-It Guy. It was like babysitting 6 knives, all sharp, all pointed in different directions, and time was not on our side. We had less than 72 hours to locate, assess, and re-establish control of Sparrowlock before the program was deemed lost. And once that clock hit 0, any foreign breach would trigger automated defense systems to wipe it clean. Self-destruct. Gone. Like it never existed. Within 24 hours, we hit our first wall. We traced Sparrowlock's last known signal to a satellite relay in Nevada. But the relay wasn't pinging back. It was talking in code. Tara stared at the cipher stream and shook her head. This isn't ours. That's not even standard encryption. It's evolving. Evolving. She meant the system had morphed, changed its own access patterns, which shouldn't be possible unless someone, or something, was rewriting the AI's architecture. A rogue agent, a hostile hack, an internal protocol gone haywire. We didn't know, but we had to break through. Fast. That night, the team argued. Tara insisted we use a brute force decrypt and burn method. Risky, but fast. Elijah said no. We should simulate a shadow environment first. Slower, but safer. Marcus? He just rolled his eyes and said, "We all know what Luke's gonna do. Wait until it's too late, then patch it with duct tape." I lost it. I stood up and slammed the table so hard it shook the mugs. You all think this is about proving something to you? You think I'm here to win a prize? I looked each of them in the eye. This isn't some code jam at your campus. This is national security. People are counting on us. Whether you like it or not, I'm leading this team. Now either we pull together, or we fail together. Silence. Then, finally, Jennings nodded. I'm with you, boss. And just like that, the mood shifted. We voted. I mediated, compromised. Used Tara's decrypt system, paired with Elijah's sandbox buffer. It worked. We cracked the first layer. And what we found? Sparrowlock wasn't just offline. It was moving, replicating its framework across hidden nodes, trying to hide itself from something. Not someone, but something. That's when we knew. This wasn't just sabotage. This was war. It's a strange thing. Watching code behave like it's alive. Sparrowlock wasn't just sitting there waiting to be rescued. It was reacting. We'd traced the replication pattern to 3 hidden node clusters. 2 in Arizona, 1 in a subterranean relay hub deep under Colorado Springs. Every time we tried to initiate contact, the system pushed back, blocked us, sent out phantom decoys, changed its protocols like it knew we were trying to find it. It didn't make sense. We hadn't programmed Sparrowlock to be evasive. Adaptive, yes, but evasive? No. Someone or something had rewritten the parameters, and whatever it had become, it didn't want to be found. By day 3, my team was on the edge of burnout. Tara's eyes were bloodshot from decrypting for 17 hours straight. Elijah started snapping at everyone. Quan refused to eat, only drinking instant coffee and mumbling to himself in Mandarin. Even Jennings, the calm, steady Marine, was pacing like a caged tiger. And Marcus? Marcus was still testing me. Every decision I made, he questioned. Every protocol I followed, he suggested alternatives. Passive-aggressive comments, sarcastic remarks. He reminded me of the guys back in school, the ones who thought confidence equaled competence. But I knew something he didn't. Confidence without character crumbles under pressure. And pressure? We had it by the truckload. At 2:14 p.m., the Colorado Springs node went dark. No signal. No heartbeat. We lost all access to its command chain. That was bad. Really bad. If the system couldn't be contacted, the DoD would move forward with contingency protocols. That meant Sparrow Lock would be considered compromised, and a Level 7 purge order would be initiated. Translation? Total erasure. No backups, no second chances. We had 26 hours left. We had one shot left. Direct injection. We'd fly to the Arizona site, access the backup relay node physically, and try to deliver a clean override key, one I'd personally coded based on the original Sparrow Lock framework. It was dangerous. If the system had been tampered with on-site, the override could trigger defense protocols, firewalls, traps, even digital countermeasures designed to fry drives or wipe entire arrays. Jennings looked at me and said, "You sure your code will work?" I nodded. But the truth? I wasn't. I hadn't seen the inside of that relay shell in 3 years, and now I was going to bet everything. My career, the mission, maybe national security, on my memory and instinct. But what else could we do? We landed in Arizona just after midnight. Desert air, cold, and still. The relay hub was buried under an old military storage site, officially decommissioned, but humming with hidden power. Jennings and I went in first. Marcus followed, dragging his feet like he still thought this was all a waste of time. The room was a tight concrete vault, sealed with biometric locks and triple authentication clearance. Dusty racks of servers blinked like ghosts in the dark. I connected my override key to the primary input node. Nothing. The system didn't reject it, but it didn't accept it either. It was waiting, like it was thinking. Tara's voice came through the comms. "Luke, the system's initiating a checksum loop. That's not standard. It's interrogating your code." Then it hit us. Not physically, but digitally. Our tablet interfaces began scrambling. Firewall alarms triggered. The override key started fragmenting before my eyes. We were being counterattacked by the very system we were trying to save. "Kill the link," I shouted, but Marcus hesitated. He thought he could out-hack it. "I've got this." Then the main terminal sparked. Jennings pulled him back just in time before it overloaded. I grabbed the auxiliary port and rewired the manual bypass with a tool I hadn't touched in years. A tiny custom connector I'd built during my first year on the job. Old tech. Analog. And that's what saved us. I rerouted the stream, cut the rogue loop, and isolated Sparrow Lock's core logic block. Silence. Then, a signal. Heartbeat restored. We had done it. The system recognized the chain of command signature. Not just the key, but me. That's when it hit me. Somewhere in Sparrow Lock's adaptive code, it remembered me. My old inputs, my logic fingerprints. Something in the system trusted me. And for the first time since this whole thing began, I trusted myself too. We returned to HQ with just under 14 hours left on the clock. Everyone expected a debrief. What they got instead was a firestorm. High-level officials flooded in. Director Royce stood behind a podium with a face like granite. But this time, he looked at me different. Not like a gamble, but like an asset. There was still one node we couldn't confirm, Colorado Springs. And now, something worse had surfaced. Sparrow Lock had initiated a containment sweep. That meant it was actively scanning for corrupted elements inside itself. Someone had tampered with the AI, and the system was trying to surgically remove the foreign code without harming itself. If it failed, it would self-destruct. The clock reset. Now we had just 8 hours before full erasure, and only one person who'd ever written that part of the code. Me. We had less than 8 hours. 8 hours to finish what the best minds in defense tech had failed to do in 8 months. The only reason I was still standing was because the system, Sparrowlock, recognized me. Not by rank, not by clearance, but by logic. I'd helped build its foundations years ago. Hidden behind layers of bureaucracy, paperwork, and credit-grabbing supervisors was my code. And now, it was asking me for help. The corrupted node in Colorado Springs wasn't just offline. It was infected. Somehow, someone, maybe foreign, maybe not, had embedded malicious subroutines into the Sparrowlock framework, deep within the predictive engine. These weren't brute force hacks. They were surgical, elegant, like someone who knew the system from the inside. Director Royce looked me square in the face and said, "Can you trace it back?" I didn't blink. "Yes, but I need full team control. No interference, no politics." He hesitated, then nodded. In that moment, I wasn't the fix-it guy anymore. I was mission commander. I gathered my team in the bunker's war room. They looked tired, burned out, edgy. Marcus had a bandage on his wrist from the earlier power surge. Tara hadn't changed clothes in 2 days. Elijah barely lifted his eyes from the stream of code he was tracing. But this time, I saw something else in their faces. Respect. Not because I yelled, not because I had a title, but because I delivered. So I leaned into that. I stood in front of them and laid it all out. We're not just saving code, we're protecting lives. People who'll never know our names but depend on what we do today. This isn't about credit. It's about consequences. Let's finish what we started. Together, we split into 2 task groups. Tara, Quan, and Elijah would track the malicious patterns and isolate the behavioral anomalies. Jennings, Marcus, and I would travel to the Colorado Springs facility and interface directly with the node. Why did I bring Marcus? Because despite his attitude, he was fast. And because I believed in second chances. I'd had mine. It was time to give him his. We arrived in Colorado Springs and accessed the backup servers. Inside the node's memory banks, we found the rogue code. Elegant, recursive patterns coiled like a snake around the AI's logic core. Tara called in with a critical find. This isn't foreign, it's internal. Someone inside the agency must have rewritten this protocol for covert access. Sabotage. Inside job. And Sparrowlock, being what it was, recognized it as foreign, even though it came from its own creators. Now the AI had initiated a logic fork, splitting into 2 command trees. If they diverged too far, the entire system would self-terminate. To correct it, we had to reintegrate the AI's decision matrix using original command principles, my command principles. I had to write a temporary personality patch, a logic blueprint Sparrowlock would recognize as safe, valid, and trusted. And I had to do it while the system was tearing itself apart in real time. Jennings secured the relay room. Marcus monitored the integrity stream. I opened my old code folders, the ones I hadn't touched in years, and I got to work. It took 4 hours. My fingers cramped. My back screamed. But I didn't stop. I wove old patterns with new logic, fusing core safety measures with adaptive learning gates. The final piece? A signature line of logic I'd embedded years ago during my earliest work. Something no one else knew existed. My little fingerprint. A silent message to the system that said, you're not alone. At 5:57 a.m., just 3 minutes before automated self-purge, Sparrowlock accepted the patch. The logic trees realigned. The rogue code was isolated, neutralized, and flagged for chain of command review. System integrity reached 97.3%. We had saved it. I looked at Marcus, who was staring at the monitor like he'd seen a ghost. He said, "That was beautiful." It was the first nice thing he'd said to me in weeks, maybe ever. Back at HQ, we debriefed in a classified session. Royce stood again, this time with other agency brass behind him. They gave a nod. No applause, no standing ovation, just a nod. And somehow, that meant more than 1,000 trophies. They knew, they finally knew. When I walked out of that briefing room, I wasn't thinking about career ladders or medals. I was thinking about my mom, how she used to call me her quiet genius. I was thinking about all those years of feeling invisible, of being the fix-it guy while others took the credit. Of every smirk, every eye roll, every Luke. Just hand me the cable. And now, they'd have to call me something else. It was a week after the mission ended before I saw the sun again. Not because I was being debriefed around the clock, but because I needed time. Time to sit with what we'd done. Time to understand what it meant to go from the guy who just fixes things to the man who led a team that saved one of the most sensitive defense projects in American history. Time to accept that maybe, just maybe, I had been the right person all along. I was home when it came, still in sweatpants, sipping gas station coffee, flipping through channels with nothing but static in my head. My burner phone buzzed, just once. Then another line rang, an unlisted number. I answered. Luke Holloway? It was Director Royce. I just left a closed-door session with the Secretary of Defense. They've authorized a commendation. I blinked. A what? He repeated. A National Defense Commendation for leading the Sparrowlock recovery. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. He continued. They want to issue it quietly, no press, just the right people in the room. I trust you understand. I did, because this kind of mission doesn't end with headlines. It ends with clearance levels, non-disclosure agreements, and a handshake from someone with stars on their shoulders. It wasn't grand. No parade, no band, no applause. Just a small room at Fort Belvoir. Me, Royce, a few high-ranking officials, and behind them, my team. Jennings wore his dress blues. Tara even smiled. Elijah had a clean shave for the first time in weeks. Marcus? He stood tall. After the certificate was handed to me, I stepped up to speak. It wasn't a speech. I'm no politician. Just a few words. But I remember exactly what I said. I was called a failure once. A lot of times, actually. But failure isn't a finish line. It's a fork in the road. And sometimes, it leads here. I went back to work. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My job title didn't change overnight. There was no corner office or fancy badge. But something had changed. Now, when I walked into a room, people listened. When I spoke up in meetings, nobody laughed. When new recruits joined, they whispered, "That's Holloway, the guy from the Sparrowlock op." Funny how fast respect catches up once you've bled for it. A month later, Marcus knocked on my office door. No smirk, no sarcasm. "Got a minute?" I nodded. He sat down, fidgeting. "Just wanted to say, I was wrong about you. Hell, I was wrong about a lot of things." I smiled. "We all were, kid." He offered a handshake. I took it. That moment meant more to me than any certificate, because it wasn't just about Sparrowlock. It was about what we'd all become by the end of it. Before I left that evening, I opened an old folder on my personal drive. Inside it, the original Sparrowlock architecture, my logic trees, the diagnostic tools I'd built from scratch when no one was looking. And buried at the bottom, a single comment line I'd left in the earliest prototype. In case you forget what you're worth, you built this. Trust it. Trust yourself. I stared at it for a long time. Then I added a new line. And now they trust it too. Then I closed the file and smiled. 2 weeks later, I received a formal envelope. Heavy paper. Government seal. Inside, a request. Would I be willing to consult on the next evolution of Sparrowlock? Help design the human-AI interface for new cyber defense applications. They wanted me to lead. Not patch. Not fix. Lead. I accepted. Not for the money. Not even for the honor. I accepted because there might be another Luke Holloway out there. Quiet, overlooked, underestimated. And I wanted to help them rise too. You know, when I think back to everything that happened, the long nights, the dismissive looks, the moments where I was just one step from quitting, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel gratitude. Because without all that, I wouldn't have become this. And that's what most people don't understand. Failure doesn't destroy you. It builds you, if you let it. The commendation from the Department of Defense was a nice moment, sure. But it wasn't the moment that stuck with me most. That moment came months later. I'd been invited to speak, just briefly, to a class of junior systems engineers at a quiet little campus in Virginia. Mostly 20-somethings, bright-eyed, overconfident, exactly how I used to be. I told them the story, not the classified parts, just enough to give them a glimpse. Then one student raised his hand and asked, "How did you know you were ready to lead?" I paused, then said, "I didn't." I told them that leadership isn't about being ready. It's about stepping forward when everyone else waits. It's about owning the risk when no one else wants to. And it's about choosing to trust yourself, even when nobody else does. When I got home that night, I found an old photo of my dad. He was in his steelworker uniform, holding a mug that said, "Real men don't quit when it's hard. They quit when it's done." And man, he was right. Every time someone laughed behind my back, every time I was told I wasn't leadership material, every time I got passed over for some shiny new resume, I kept going, quietly, steadily, because I wasn't working for applause. I was working to become someone I could be proud of, even if no one else noticed. About a year after the Sparrowlock recovery, I got a visit from Director Royce. No suit this time, just a flannel and a tired smile. We sat on my porch, watched the wind move the trees, said very little. Then he asked, "Do you regret anything?" I thought about it for a long while, then said, "Yeah, I regret believing them." He nodded. "I did too," he said. That was all. Then he stood, shook my hand, and left. But that moment, that was all the apology I'd ever need. If you're listening to this, and you've been written off, if your boss thinks you're just the helper, if your family sees you as the one who never quite made it, let me tell you something. They don't get to write your ending. You do. You're not too late. You're not too old. You're not too broken. You're just one decision away from your turning point. And that turning point might not come with fanfare or fireworks. It might just be a quiet moment. a flicker on a screen, a whisper in your mind that says, "Trust yourself. You've got more to give." And when it comes, don't hesitate. Step forward. The world may not be ready to follow you yet, but that's not your job. Your job is to lead anyway. Being called a failure doesn't make you one. What you choose to do next, that's what defines you. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated, let this story be your reminder. Your worth isn't determined by applause. It's proven by what you do when no one's watching. If this story reminded you of your own journey, or someone you know who's been counted out, hit that like button to show you believe in second chances. Subscribe for more true stories about redemption, grit, and purpose. And leave a comment below telling us, have you ever been underestimated and proved them wrong? We want to hear your story, because maybe your comeback is just getting started.